Good afternoon, vinyl community. It's been almost a week, so I thought I'd come back and show you what I've been listening to. Okay, so today I started off with some jazz. There's something about Sundays where jazz works. I mean, jazz works any time, but particularly on a lovely, crisp Sunday morning, a bit of jazz, you can't go wrong. So yeah, the first one I had on today was John Coltrane with Crescent from 1964. It's an original UK copy. On HMV, beautiful cover as you can see. I love the simple design, you know, the top here where it says what the album is and the little mono, I like the font of the mono there, like similar to the Beatles, you know, the original UK Beatles albums. That great HMV logo there, the classic dog with a gramophone. And then you've got the great photo here of the man himself and a lovely sort of sheen to the cover, lovely. There's the back there. This is John Coltrane Quartet. You have McCoy Tyner, Jimmy Garrison and Elvin Jones. So absolutely classic jazz musicians if you know your stuff. This was recorded about 6 months before A Love Supreme, I believe. So if you're into A Love Supreme, this is that kind of vibe. This is beautiful, not quite as spiritual as A Love Supreme, but beautiful nevertheless. I had the second track, what was it, Wise One, on earlier, and it was so relaxing that I almost fell asleep. I mean, I was so chilled out. It was beautiful. So yeah, if you don't know this one, check it out. It's a really lovely album, Crescent by John Coltrane. Okay, so the second one I had on today, Lee Morgan. Now, it's pronounced it's written rather, ex-pubident. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, but there we are. I'm not even entirely sure what the word means, to be honest, whether it's a kind of amalgamation of two things or what it actually means something. I'm not sure, I'll have to look it up, but maybe the more intellectual amongst you might know what it means. But anyway, that's not what this is about. It's about the music, isn't it? And it's just a beautiful album. Lee Morgan, of course, legendary trumpet player. I've got really into Lee Morgan over the last couple of years. I think he's gained a bit more popularity because there was that documentary about him on Netflix. I think it was they called him Morgan or something like that. I called him Morgan. It's about how he got shot by his wife. It's really interesting. If you like jazz and haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. But yeah, I've been listening to all his albums. I have them all in digital form, and yeah, they're all wonderful that I've heard. I found this one in a charity shop, actually, a really good find. You never find jazz in charity shops here. That would be like the US, you'd call them like a thrift store or a Goodwill. Here we call them charity shops for obvious reasons. And I found it in there. I think this was like a couple of pounds or something, really cheap. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I was like, wow, you never find jazz, let alone Lee Morgan, you know, really good jazz. So I couldn't believe it when I found it. It plays 90% fine. There's a few bad scratches on a couple of tracks, but overall it plays fine. So for a couple of quid for an original Lee Morgan on this beautiful original UK stateside pressing, lovely. You know, don't mind if I do. Again, it's got that similar top there with the mono. I imagine it was owned by the same company, that's why it's the same sort of design. But yeah, who plays on this then? We have Lee Morgan, obviously, Eddie Higgins, Art Blakey, I mean, come on, Art Blakey, Art Davis, and Cliff Jordan. So yeah, quite the lineup if you like your jazz. If you know Lee Morgan and haven't listened to this one, or you know jazz and haven't listened to this one, if you like jazz rather, check it out. Really lovely album. Okay, so switching gears altogether into something rather psychedelic, Pink Floyd, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Now, you've probably seen this once or twice in your life, I'm sure, if you're into this kind of thing. But this one's special because this is an original. Let me see. You can see the code there. This is an original mono copy. First press mono copy, UK original. on Columbia, the Blue Columbia label, original. This was recently reissued, I believe. I've heard good things about the reissue, but you can't beat an original, can you? So, yeah, what can you say really? If you know your psychedelic music, this is a classic. 1967, Syd Barrett. I'm sure many of you know the whole story about Syd Barrett, but if you don't, he was kind of considered a sort of lost genius of music due to drugs, psychedelic drugs. He just lost the plot basically on acid and made a solo album or two and kind of drifted off into obscurity, and I think he liked it that way in some ways, but yeah, quite a sad story really. I think he suffered quite badly mentally from it, but this was his kind of his magnum opus, you might say, his big deal, his shining moment, this classic psychedelic album. It's wonderful, interesting. For 1967, this is pretty crazy in a good way. So if you don't know this, check it out. Great album. You might hate it, you might not understand it at first. It might take you lots of listens, but eventually maybe you'll come round to it. Or maybe you like it straight away, I don't know. When I was a kid, it took me a while to understand early Pink Floyd. I didn't really understand, I didn't really get it. I thought it was just kind of crazy, really. But then as I matured mentally and musically, I really think it's a really interesting, artistically interesting album, and I recommend giving it a go if you don't know it. I mean, most of you probably do, but just in case. This is a really cool one, Stray, from 1970, I believe it is. If you like your heavy music like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Captain Beyond, any of those sort of cool, heavy, early 70s bands, check out Stray. This band does not get enough praise, attention. They deserve more, because this band was absolutely brilliant for their time. This is super heavy for 1970. This is really, really cool. English band, I believe. This is an original with the die-cut cover. And I'll open it up for you. It's on Transatlantic. Quite rare to find an original. I was really lucky to find this. There's the really cool inside cover there, look. Really nice, sort of lovely colours on that. But yeah, if you like your heavy music, your heavy early 70s rock, this is absolutely brilliant. Really, really good. Check it out. It's just great. All I can say is it's great. If you, like I say, check it out. Brilliant. Okay, now, I don't know about you, but I'm a huge Frank Zappa fan. This was the first Frank Zappa album I ever listened to back in the day, and this blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. I couldn't believe this is like some of the greatest music I'd ever heard at that point. I couldn't believe how good this was. 1969, I believe it is. So back then, I mean, I can only imagine what this album, Hot Rats, what people must have thought. I mean, I can't even imagine. It must have blown people's minds. I suppose it must have blown their minds exactly like it did mine, They couldn't believe how cool it was. It's just brilliant. It's mostly instrumental. There's a track with Captain Beefheart where he sings, and that's really cool. But it's almost like if you took the skill and talent of somebody that could write classical music and put that into like jazz, and then added like funk and psychedelic guitar and just cool ass music into one melting pot, and then put it through Frank Zappa's insane filter, and then you'd come out with this really in 1969, and this is just incredible. If you've never bothered to check out Frank Zappa, if you've only heard his kind of 80s stuff and perhaps you weren't impressed, check out this album. This will blow your mind. If it doesn't, maybe at least you'll find it interesting. But to me, this is one of the coolest albums ever made. Look at that cover. I believe it recently turned 50 years old, this album, so the fact that this album is from 50 years ago and is still as cool as ever is quite a testament, I mean, this is really something special, truly. So yeah, check that one out. Incidentally, I know recently there's I think it's 1973 Halloween special that's come out in a box set. I saw it yesterday in Rough Trade. It comes with a mask I've seen the previous one, I think it was 77 that came with a mask as well. And this had a kind of like greeny Halloween type mask of Frank Zappa's face, and it's like the CDs of the show, but it's really expensive. I think it was like £75. I mean, not outrageous if you're really into him and want a nice collectible, but CD. If it was a vinyl box set with the mask for 75, then yeah, I'd go for it maybe. But CDs at that price, not so sure really. But yeah, anyway, if you like Frank Zappa, that's something to be aware of, that's out. So yeah, here's another one. This is one of my favourite albums of all time, Dave Mason, Alone Together, 1970, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly. This is wonderful. Dave Mason was in Traffic, the band Traffic, with Steve Winwood, and then he made this solo album, and this is beautiful. This to me is a masterpiece really. There's not a bad song on this album. The whole way through it's beautiful. If you like soulful, early 70s rock with, if you like Delaney and Bonnie, early Eric Clapton, that whole kind of like soulful, bluesy, rock and roll, early 70s style, lots of feeling. This is great. I mean, just this album really touches me. It's so beautiful, so much soul, great guitar playing on this. Lots of famous people play on this as well. Eric Clapton plays on this. I believe a whole host of different people that, of course, I'm blanking on now. I'm on camera here, but yeah, look it up if you're interested. This is an original copy on Harvest. I know in America this came out on Blue Thumb, and it came with a beautiful, lovely splatter-coloured vinyl. But here in England, it only came out on black vinyl for some reason, which is a shame really, because I love that lovely splatter. But at the same time, this is the rarer, more collectible version, so it's cool to kind of have it on Harvest. And it folds out as well. I won't fold it out now because I don't want to damage it. It's quite a rare one. The UK version is, at least, anyway. But yeah, check it out. If you don't know this album, check it out on YouTube. It's lovely. Okay, so that's all the albums I pulled out to show. I pulled out a few singles and EPs as well. I don't really collect a lot of singles and EPs because they can be expensive, and I'd rather just buy an album and get more for my money, to be honest with you. But at the same time, sometimes I just can't resist because it's like, oh man, that's cool, I have to have that. So I just pulled out a handful to show you. Okay, so this is maybe my favourite single in my collection at the moment that I own. This is Blossom Toes with Peace Loving Man on Marmalade, original copy. Now, if you know your psychedelic music, you probably like, or at least know, Blossom Toes. I used to have one of their albums, an original copy of one of their albums that goes for like £700-800 nowadays, which I really regret selling. But yeah, such is life. But yeah, I got this single still, Peace Loving Man. This is one of the coolest songs you'll ever hear if you're into psychedelic music. It's really insane, basically. They must have been on some heavy drugs, heavy experimentation going on. But this is, to me, one of the coolest songs you'll ever hear. For 1969, this song gets heavy as hell. It's quite crazy. Like, it goes from like the chorus where it's like Peace Loving Man, all like sort of whimsical, and it will go into like the most heavy, like almost like screaming metal you've ever, you could hear, and then back to that kind of whimsical style, and then, but it's bonkers basically. Check it out. It's really interesting, really cool single. You won't believe how heavy this song gets for its time. It's quite amazing. It kind of preempted heavy metal in a way, but it's really cool. Check it out. This was a cool find, Jethro Tull with Hymn 43 and Locomotive Breath. Now, this is German, original German. Something about Germany, they got all these really cool picture sleeves back in the day. Germany, Europe, had all these really cool singles, picture sleeves. And I saw that and thought, oh man, I have to have that. Just thought it was a nice thing. And look on the back there, look what it's advertising. You've got McDonald and Giles, Fothering Gay, loads of Bloodwind Pig, Traffic, loads of cool stuff there. What a time, man. Islands, they had some really cool stuff come out, didn't they? Wow. Magical Time. And I have another one here, Cream, Crossroads and Passing the Time. That's lovely, I had to get that. That was really cheap as well. I'm a big Cream fan, big Clapton fan, big fan of all these people. Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce, so I had to get this. This is German as well, I believe. Or actually, it's printed in Germany, it might be Austrian, if my memory serves me right, but either way, this is really cool. Okay, some more Pink Floyd. Put Me at the Sky. This is an original copy from 1968. This is really cool. Beautiful vocals from David Gilmour on this. And has that great lyric, if you survive until 2005, I hope you were exceedingly thin. And then something it goes on to talk about, like, while others breathe out, breathe in, or however it goes now anyway. But yeah. And on the back it's Careful with That Axe, Eugene. Interesting song. Quite different from Point Me at the Sky. But yeah, that was the B-side. This is an original, quite rare, collectible. Really glad to have that one. Beautiful song actually, Point Me at the Sky. Really interesting. A lot going on in one track. Really interesting song. It really comes alive on vinyl as well, that one. So I recommend that. And then I'll show here 5 Yardbirds, 1965. Jeff Beck, you can see there on guitar. This is an original copy, original EP from 65. Great stuff. Now, as with a lot of EPs and singles, the B-side is better than the A-side. Now, the A-side is My Girl Sleepy, which is, nothing special, is it really? If you've heard that once, you've heard it a million times, really, My Girl Sleepy. But the B-side, I'm Not Talking, that's a different story, that's great. That's a Mose Allison cover. If you don't know Mose Allison, he was a really cool jazz musician, singer and piano player that had really sort of wry, clever, like funny lyrics. And they covered that, and there's a really great point in this song where it's like the music stops and Keith Ralph just says, "Don't call me baby, I'll call you," and then it just bursts into Jeff Beck's guitar solo, and that's just, oh man, that's so cool. For 1965, that's badass. But of course, that's Mose Allison who was badass. But yeah, Jeff Beck's guitar on this is great, and then it follows up with I Ain't Done Wrong as well, which is another good one. Some really cool guitar on that, some wild guitar on that from Jeff Beck when it gets going. Kind of starts off, not particularly amazing, but then it gets really good with the guitar on that one. But yeah, really cool. I'm glad to have this. This is quite rare, as you can imagine. An original. And I'll just pull it out of the sleeve there for you to see on Columbia. Lovely. Mingus Dynasty, Charlie Mingus. I got this for nothing, basically, really cheap. I think it was like 20 pence or something ridiculous like that. Not particularly his greatest songs, but I love that cover. It's just cool, isn't it? Look at that. If you don't know Charlie Mingus somehow, check him out. Amazing jazz bass player, genius of music, really. This guy is one of the greatest jazz composers there ever was. Super talented. I believe he came from a classical background, so that kind of gave him a sort of a leg up on some people, perhaps, because he had that kind of technical expertise. And people say, like, oh, he's just the bass player, but oh no, he was a great composer as well. I've had somebody say to me, like, before, like, why is his name on an album when he's just the bass player? And I was like, no, you don't understand. He composed the songs. This guy was a genius composer. He didn't just play bass. So, as with, like when you get drummers that just have their own albums, like Art Blakey had albums, these people were more than just players, they composed songs as well, so brilliant. And then to finish up, 5x5, the Rolling Stones. Look at that classic, iconic Decca cover design there, just simple, beautiful, classic shot of the band when they were young. Got Brian Jones still in the band there. Just great colours, great sort of 60s colours. I don't know what it is about the photo, it almost looks like a painting because it's so old. I don't know if it's the film or what, but it just looks like a painting in a way when you look at their faces, look at Mick's face. But yeah, this is really cool. Confessing the Blues, Around and Around, you know, some cool tracks on this. I know this one's been reissued, but this is an original UK. Not amazingly expensive, just a really cool thing to have. I love the Stones, you know, all periods. Great. So yeah, let me know what you think. Leave a comment, I do enjoy them. I like getting to know all of you. And yeah, tune back soon for some more. I'm thinking about doing some specials, like heavy music special, jazz special, prog special, you know, just talking about different records in the collection like that. And I've also got like a really cool collection of original 80s heavy metal magazines. I grew up with 80s metal, and I still have a soft spot for it now and then, you know, blast out some Judas Priest like I was doing on Friday night here, dancing around like I'm 12 years old. So I'm thinking about going through those and showing you those, because like it's just, they're solid gold, you know, like new in 88, or, you know, coming soon, Masters of Puppets, the new album from Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, and it has like adverts for like films like New, Predator and stuff, just classic stuff, you know, all the way. It's quite amazing to see. So I'm thinking about doing a video showing those as well, coming up soon. So yeah, let me know what you think, comment, subscribe, and let's get this party started. Cheers.